Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and I am finally getting to a review that I had intended to do far earlier in the year. It is based on a book that was getting a lot of publicity and chatter at the beginning of the year, and it is The 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And finally sat down, took notes, went through it, and oh my goodness, I had so many notes that I just stopped taking notes because there was too much to cover. And I'm going to give you my take on it and let you decide if it's something you want to look into. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. So I know that there is a lot going on in the world right now, and we will get to all of that next week, I promise. Right now, I just want to hit this review that I've been wanting to share with you for a while. So again, the book that I'm covering is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. He is a fairly well-known psychologist. He's Canadian. So let me outline what the 12 rules are, and then we will do a little bit more of a in-depth study of some of them. The first one is stand up straight with your shoulders back. Number 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Number 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Number 6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Number 8, tell the truth or at least don't lie. Number 9, assume that the person you are listening to might know something you do not. Number 10, be precise in your speech. Number 11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. And number 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. So, as I said, I'm going to go into some of these in a little bit more detail, not all of them. I had pages and pages of notes, and I realized I just couldn't cover it all. So, I'm going to go up to rule number 9. And this should give you at least a flavor if this is a book that you're interested in going in, reading yourself, and exploring. That said, let's just kind of jump into all of this. So, the rule number 1 was the first one. It's basically each rule has a chapter, and I'm going to tell you straight up. You might going to hear some page turning because, like I said, I have page and pages of notes. It's stand up straight with your shoulders back. And I'm going to give you a heads up on this chapter. He does this whole analogy with lobsters. And there was a while where I was like, okay, where are you going with this? So just hold in tight, people. I promise he gets to really great stuff, but it might not start off the way you were expecting. And that's the first thing I want to say. But in number 1, he talks about taking responsibility for your life and making as much of your daily life routine as possible. So he talks about routines and how if you can just say, okay, I'm going to get up this day at time, like every day. I'm going to go grocery shopping on this day. Just make as much of what you do routine as possible. That's less daily choices you're having to make, and that will help give you a sense of confidence because you'll be able to take care of those things with less stress. The other thing he talked about, and I thought this was super fascinating, was in regards to depression and anxiety, that a lot of his patients who've dealt with those things, the first thing he tells them is wake up the same time every morning and then have a high protein breakfast. Those 2 things, he said, were some of the biggest contributors to helping someone overcome depression and anxiety than almost anything else. And I think those are really great rules for life that anyone can have. And basically, he's saying, don't go out and try to act like you're going to take over the world and you're this big boss person and everyone should bow to you, but own the space you're in and take pride in your life. And so that I thought was really cool. Um, but yeah, so that was basically some of the biggest points I got out of the first rule, which was the stand up straight one. And number two was treat yourself like someone, that's worth helping. And oftentimes people tend to treat their pets or their friends or other people, they put them above themselves. And that's selfless, but at the same time, it's not healthy if you do it to the extreme. So he goes on to you deserve respect and that you have a role to play in this world. And by treating yourself with respect and taking care of yourself enables you to fulfill that role. We all fall short and we need to keep going regardless. We need to forgive ourselves. Forgiving ourselves is huge. And then he talks about you need to know where you are, who you are, and where you are going. So he talks about vision and direction. And there was a really great quote from Nietzsche that he shares, and I wrote it down. And Nietzsche says, he whose life has a why can bear almost any how. And I thought that was really fabulous. That when you understand the why of what you're doing and where you're at, you can handle so much of the how. And that ties into some things I've talked about with resiliency in other episodes. So again, thought that was pretty cool. The third rule, when he talks about making friends that basically are going to help you be a better person, and I have tons of personal experience with this. This is something I came to on my own. But I'm not saying it was a unique thought that I had. It's obviously not. He's came to it and he's a bit older, quite a bit older than me. Um, but basically that if you have a good friend is going to support you in changing and growing and becoming better. But if you have a friend, and we've talked about the crab pot mentality, who is not supporting you and trying to be your best, then that person's not truly a good friend. And that might be someone you need to just let go and let them go their own way and you go your own way. And that's not always easy. He talks about growing up in a small town and what he saw with that and how that's how it got him going thinking about this. Sometimes the friends we have are not always supportive, and we need to find friends that are supportive. So, that I thought was a pretty good point that he made. He talked about helping others is good, but not everybody who is asking for help really wants help. And that was the other thing. Sometimes we really want to go out there and we want to be supportive and help people out who are struggling and make this difference and sacrifice and whatnot. And the people who are asking for help don't actually want help. And I've encountered this before. There's been an experience I had with another military spouse, and her family was in a really rough situation that had been out of their control, and they were struggling. And so I tried to hook her up with resources, help her be proactive, find ways to improve the quality of living that their family situation was at that time. And in the end, it turned out she just wanted money. She wanted handouts and she didn't want to work for any of it. She didn't want to be proactive. And when the handouts and the money dried up, she became very bitter and angry with me because she's like, well, you just don't understand. You don't care. And that wasn't the case. I understood and I did care, but I'm not made of money. And the organizations that I direct military spouses to are there to help people who are willing to help themselves. If you're not willing to help yourself, then they need to move on and help people where their resources will do the most good. And then the other thing that came to my mind was a story that I had been told. I had been told once when I was a camp leader for a youth camp, and it was the throw, row, and go story. And so, throw, row, and go in our life saving techniques for water rescue. Throw is when you throw an inner tube with a rope on it out to somebody who is struggling and potentially starting to drown, and they grab onto it and you pull it in. A row is when this is like lake techniques are like large body of waters where you get into a raft or canoe and you row out to them. They grab onto and climb into the raft slash boat. Um, and then a go is when you try to swim out yourself and retrieve them and pull them back. And the person who was giving this said that go is the most dangerous way of trying to rescue someone because you are more likely to get drowned by the person you are trying to save because they have the level of panic they're experiencing than you are to save them. It's incredibly difficult to rescue someone, especially if they're about the same size as you, if you do a go. And that really stuck with me. And he then talked about how this applies to relationships. There are times where we will see people who are struggling and we want to help them, but we cannot go to their level. We cannot participate in their bad choices. We need to uplift them. We need to offer them the opportunity to get out. We need to point them in the direction of resources. We need to be encouraging, but we can't wallow with them in their misery because that's not going to help them in the long run. And I've seen that, like I said, in my own personal life. It's been hard when I've had those experiences where there are people I genuinely want to help, but if they don't want to actually change, there's nothing I can do to help them. And that's just how it is. So that's something to keep in mind. The number 4 is stop comparing. So it's the basically being kind to yourself. Stop comparing yourself to others. Just don't compare who you are today to someone else is best. Oftentimes when we do comparisons, we're comparing someone's strength to our weakness, which isn't fair. What we're trying to do is be a better person today than we were yesterday. And that's huge. This is also a concept I kind of was led to by mentors and has become a motto for me. It really helps with imposter syndrome because I feel like we get imposter syndrome sometimes because we are comparing ourselves to others when really that's not fair. There's only one of us. I am the only person who is ever going to be me in this entire history of the planet. There's only one of you. There's only one of me. And I just need to work on becoming the best me that there can possibly be. And if I am better today than I was yesterday, then I'm on the right track. And it's really easy to get distracted from that. There is no value-free choices that we're making. And so we have to stop and look at the decisions we're making in our life. Are they really going to help us become the person we want to become? And it goes back to what he's talked about before in regards to vision and direction, that we've got to know what we're looking for in life if we want to be able to achieve it. There's much more than success and failure. I think sometimes we think everything is black and white. Sometimes when we fail, we learn new things, and that is just as valuable as succeeding. And sometimes people who win a lot don't learn as much. I'm going to give an example. I have always done rather well academically, especially all through school and junior high and my first couple of years of college. And then I switched to a higher, I was switched from a junior college to a university. And I had never failed a test in my life. I had never failed a class in my life. And I finally got to university and I failed a test and I was just gutted. I passed the class and it was okay. And then the first semester I was married, I failed a class for the first time in my life and I was just devastated. And my husband's like, it's fine. I failed before and I'm okay. And I just was so grateful for his encouragement that failing wasn't the end of the world. And looking back, I'm so grateful that I did learn how to fail because sometimes learning how to fail gracefully is just as important as winning gracefully. And just because I failed that class on paper, and yes, I'm admitting I failed a college class, I'm human. I failed that college class because I'd gotten pneumonia and missed a whole lot. And I had to pick one class to just stop doing the coursework on so I would have time to catch up on the coursework for all of my other classes. And I didn't fail everything. And so it was strategic. But I kept going to that class. And I told the professor, I cannot pass your class. There's no way I will, but I will still try to. I cannot do the coursework, but I will still take the tests. I will come to every single lecture. I will participate, I will take notes, and I will do my very best. But I know that there is little to no chance I pass this class. And she was devastated. She said that she wished I had come to her sooner and she could have worked things out with me and maybe made a bigger compromise. But I took too long to admit that I was struggling, and there was just not much she could do at that point. So I learned that communicating is really important. Had I gone to my professor sooner, maybe I wouldn't have failed that class. I also learned that even though I may not have passed the class on paper because I didn't stop learning, I still use a lot of information I gained from those lectures. I really gained a lot of knowledge, and that's not reflective of the grade that I received. And sometimes that's just how things are. The external recognition or gauge of a situation doesn't accurately depict what we learned and gained from it. Getting caught up in external qualifiers or recognition is not always worthwhile. And then we don't win at everything. We just don't. Sometimes, and these are all the notes I took. Sometimes having everything can be a blessing, and sometimes not having what you want is a bigger blessing. And the thing that came to my mind is celebrity. Celebrities are very typically well off. They get a lot, they have like nice houses, they can afford nice things, but they usually have to have security details. They don't always have a lot of privacy. And so you might, to get the thing you really want, have to give up something. And is that something you would have to give up worth it to you? Okay, one last thing is, how do you motivate yourself? And how do you get yourself going? Because in the end, you are responsible for you. And that can either be the most encouraging thing or the most discouraging thing, depending on how you look at it. And then he goes into with rule number 5. This one I don't think was well articulated. The don't let your kids do things that makes you don't like them. I don't think that was very well worded. The principles he talks about in here, I think some of them are really on point and well articulated. But this just, I didn't like the name for the rule. If we love our children, then why would we let them present themselves poorly or learn bad habits instead of correcting them? And that, I think, is fundamental. If we genuinely love our children, why on earth would we allow them to self-destruct? Now, we can allow them to self-destruct by doing nothing and just letting them do whatever they want, which will lead to an ineffective human being, or we can cause them to self-destruct by coddling them too much and trying to do everything for them and protect them from everything. So it's a balancing act. Helping them learn to be functional, responsible adults is a complicated task. And the other thing he talks about is how we need to teach our kids good social skills, and that correction should be firm but kind. Parents are more than your friends. Where you can have lots of friends throughout your life, but you're only ever going to have two parents. And then parenting should take effort. It's not going to be easy. Intentional parenting is going to take intent, which is effort. It's going to take focus. It's going to take constant work. I'll admit I'm a better parent now than I was when I became a parent 12 years ago. It definitely is something that is a learning curve, and you just have to be patient with yourself and continue to progress. Another thing is children are looking for boundaries and they need them to be consistent. And this is so important. Oh my word, is this so important? Having consistent boundaries for children is one of the kindest things you can do for them because it helps them be more emotionally stable. And you might wonder why. But when they know what to expect from you on a certain topic, every single day of the week, every single time, then that does not cause them anxiety or concern or stress. They know what they'll get. And so having routines, having consistent rules and consistent boundaries, our kids know straight up that there are certain things that are not acceptable in our home. Lying is not allowed. There are set consequences for lying. There are set consequences for hurting someone because I believe in natural consequences. There are consequences to choosing to stay up late. You still have to get up at the same time. So if you're tired, your problem. And that goes for mommies as much as it goes for kiddos. I do tend to stay up sometimes later than I should. And you know what? I have a human alarm clock and baby cuteness. So natural consequences are genuinely a good thing for kids as well. So I loved that. Going into rule number 6, he talks about, um, and just as a refresher on what rule number 6 is, and I'm way over on all of this. So I may not even get all the way through them. I think I'm going to just finish with rule number 6 here. But it's set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. And he talks about being a transitional character and recognizing how your choices have a contribution to your problems and you can fix them. And seeking to be understood, speaking up for yourself. Then in the next one, he talks a lot about sacrifice in rule number 7. Rule number 8, he talked about a lot about truth and honesty. And yeah, just there is so much good in this book. I will go back to what I said before. There are times where he gets a little what feels like off track to me. But he always circles back and makes it make sense. So hold in tight for the first 2 chapters. It might feel like that for you as well. But this is a fabulous book. It definitely can be helpful for people who are looking for guidance in how to improve their life and want to take more ownership of their life. Is it a really cut and dry, straightforward checklist? No. It is definitely meant to be thought-provoking. And so it may not be a format that works for everyone. There's a lot of analogy, there's a lot of philosophy and psychology brought up in it. And if that fascinates you as well as the checklist ideas, this might be what is the best option for you. That said, like, this is going to be a much longer episode than typical because, like I said, I had pages and pages and pages of notes on this. So, breaking it down, do I recommend his book? Yes. Do I think it's going to be a perfect fit for everyone? Maybe not. If you have a hard time following in-depth analogies and psychology and philosophical theories, this may not be the book for you. You might want something a little bit more straightforward, like the Atomic Habits that I was talking about earlier this year in another review. It just depends on who you are. So, with that said, either way, it's worth, I think, taking a look. And if not, some of these concepts are just timeless. So even if you don't maybe buy the book, checking it out at the library is a really great idea. Moving on to a little bit of, podcast maintenance stuff to share with you all. I'm still looking for veterans who want to participate in the Profiles on a Veteran series for this November. I will be hopefully recording those in October. So if you have a relative or you yourself are a veteran and would like to participate in the veteran series, talking about your experience in the military service and what you are doing now, please reach out, contact me through the podcast information in the description below. Like always, I want you to know that I am grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for your feedback and input, and please keep sending me suggestions and ideas and things that you want me to review and look into. I am more than willing to get to what I can. I can't do everything, but I'm going to do my best. And most importantly, let's work on being the good we want to see in the world. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.